Hey guys, we had a great conversation with Carlos Simon and Leah Claiborne last week, and so we wanted to continue the discussion on equity in classical music. That was a great conversation that we had. Everything that we were talking about was great, but especially I want to just touch more on equity in classical music and the arts. That's something that we're really passionate about. So a lot of people always ask us, where do we go from here? What do you think about that?
Yeah, people are always asking us, what should we do next? What can I do? How can I help? So we're going to give you a couple of things that we say on other people's podcasts. We thought, why don't we just do it on our own? Exactly. So a couple of things. Repertoire. So anybody that's playing or if you're teaching, it's really important for you to be the first stop for your students to learn about new repertoire. I was just having a conversation the other day about this with another interview, and they were saying that they really believe band directors, orchestra directors, elementary music school teachers really have the gateway privilege of introducing children to music that's not completely by white European composers. So if that's you have a job to do, okay? And you have a really big, important job to do to influence the youngest of our new and budding musicians and just music appreciators to really understand the importance of broadening their scope of what they listen to.
And that's what's nice about what we do as educators, because at least we get to do that. Coming up in school, especially, and we're talking about the teachers here, but even if it's not covered in the books, I feel like we have a duty to do that. When we were in music school, I only heard about William Grant Still in the books.
I didn't even hear about him. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, George Walker, for instance, I did not know that name really until, you started talking about him and you were doing your dissertation. But that, like Artina said, it's really important as educators for us to just, educate our students. Yes, I love European music. I love playing Bruckner. I love playing Brahms. But however, there's a lot of other great music out there, and we have to let our students know about those things.
Yeah, and if you are a performer yourself, or if you're a student in school, ask your professors or ask your teachers about music. If they don't know, educate them. I think we all have an individual responsibility for our own education. So you can't completely put it on the institution if you have the knowledge that there's other stuff out there. So there's a couple of resources, and we'll drop some of those in the link. But I know personally as a pianist, the Francis Clark Center has been doing a really great job of putting out courses about Black composers. That's new. I contributed to it. And Leah, as we mentioned in last week's episode, curated that program. And then I think you have a few resources for brass players or instrumentalists.
On the brass side of things, Brass Out Loud, which is an organization where I was a faculty member a few weeks ago. It's fantastic, and they are definitely pushing the needle when it comes to diversity in the arts. And on their website, they have a lot of links regarding for brass players and repertoire you can perform by underrepresented composers.
So let's talk about the institutions, because people are always asking us this hot, spicy question, trying to get us in trouble, I guess. So let's talk about what can institutions do. So, on the secondary level, and your private independent students, and then academia, in colleges and universities, what can they do to promote diversity, especially, ethnic diversity is typically what we're talking about. So
especially, we are both college professors, and when we get a chance to travel, when it's not COVID, but when you're looking at the racial landscape of faculty members, and I'm going to be blunt here. If your faculty looks like a Trump cabinet, you're doing something wrong. And it doesn't really show true diversity to the students, because they're going to think, oh, this is how it is everywhere. I feel like I was very fortunate because I had a very unique education and experience with just my primary trombone teachers, I mean, I had the whole gambit. I had a white male, I had a white female, and a black male as my trombone teachers. But not everybody has that type of situation. Like when did you have your first black teacher, music teacher?
I'm still looking.
Like never.
I don't know any.
Yeah.
I never had a black teacher ever. Actually, not even just music. I never had a black teacher. Actually, I had an African American studies teacher in high school, but besides that, in college, there was a vocal professor at the university that I went to that, I worked with some of her students, but besides that, no.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, how can I have a black professor if there are no black professors at the school? So
Yeah,
that's not really an option.
Yeah, well, like upper administration, like they have to hire more black faculty members. I mean, and especially if you're in a city that might be primarily black and Latino is the population, then you should definitely kind of reinforce like what your faculty looks like, because it needs to look like the community.
And I think, obviously our communities look different. And so there might be some communities that are primarily white or primarily Hispanic, some that have more minority communities from Asia, etc. And I think, it's important, even if your community is one ethnicity or one group of people or one socioeconomic class, that you also want to expose yourself to other people as well. So I think don't even just think about it as we need to hire black or Hispanic or, name your diversity advocacy here. Is this that we all benefit from having other people that are not like us in our communities, even if we are in a homogeneous community. So
that's awesome.
Okay, so let's move on from that one and let's talk about what people can do. Let's say that their institution is amazing. They have great diversity in their teaching staff, their administrative staff, and they're like, what else can I do? So let's talk about guests and bringing in guests, and what could that look like for people that maybe don't work in academia, they work somewhere else?
Well, I feel like different organizations are different, but I feel especially if the organization has like a board of directors, board of advisors, diversifying your boards. Tokenism is real, and when you're looking at boards, it's really easy just to look up boards on the website. And I mean, typically, like there's usually like one black voice on the board, like maybe one Hispanic voice, and that's not diversity at all. And so it's going to be hard to try to advocate, well, we should have like more guest artists if your boards, like the people who have the control and have the control of the budgets, are in charge. So like that's extremely important, is diversifying your boards.
Yeah, and if you are a person that really enjoys being on boards and that you represent is not on maybe your favorite chamber music society, maybe go offer yourself, because I know we've all served on boards, and sometimes it's hard to get people on board. So if you know that you have this calling or this passion about name your nonprofit here, why don't you go suggest yourself to be on the board and say, hey, I noticed you don't have blah, blah, blah. And that's some asset that I could provide for your nonprofit organization. I mean, boards sometimes, I think, especially in minority communities where maybe there's not as much cash flow, there's not as much extra, we sometimes shy away from those because we think, well, if I don't have the money to give, why am I being a part of this? But it's actually about your time. So if you have the time to give to the organization, that pays big dividends for your community and for the generations to come. Yeah.
And I feel like also some organizations might say, well, we just don't know the different artists that are out there. And of course, like the artists are definitely out there. Like that's where you ask questions. It's very, very easy just to reach out to people, different ensembles, soloists. But, when you're looking at your artist roster for soloists, for orchestras or various festivals, like that just definitely needs to be a thing, because we're educating the future generation, and it shouldn't be the norm where they're seeing the same type of people all the time. Yeah, and just like a practical example, what are you doing in your studio? I know you've had like 50 guests. He's such an overachiever. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in this past year, since we can't have guests on campus, we've been having like several guests, like via Zoom. And after this year's over with, it would have been definitely over 25 guests. And I wanted to make a habit, not just this year, but every year, where the students aren't just seeing like a white male playing trombone. Yeah, even though like their professor is black, but I wanted them to see Hispanic trombone players, female trombone players, Asian trombone players, just people from all over the place. And so I think that's been really cool. One, just even visually looking at the poster, like this is what true diversity is supposed to be.
Yeah, and you serve a big Hispanic population at your school
Absolutely.
too, so it's really important for you to think about that in your community. And then for myself, I do the same. We think about everybody. I want Europeans and to be on the program. I mean, obviously they've contributed a lot since we've been studying their repertoire for so long. But I also want new voices. And something that's been really cool is once I had a friend from Hong Kong come in, and she played some Chinese music, and she actually had a gong. And I mean, we went to school together. She's very talented at all of the standard repertoire. But, I, as a black pianist, would not have brought a gong to anywhere, So it's just like, I got to see something that I wouldn't normally see too. And that enriched my musical experience. So I think it's so much more than just, I need to fill out this checkbox of, I got, this, and this. I had all the different ethnicities I could think of. It's about how does it enrich your life as well. And I'm never going to forget that performance,
Definitely.
Seeing a gong on the stage and, my colleague playing piano. So anyway, this has been a really candid conversation. We thank you all for listening. We hope that it provides some ideas for you moving forward. And where can they find us, Martin?
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at McCain Duo, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the little bell when all of our videos drop and you're notified, and also on our website at McCainDuo.com.
And if you didn't see that interview with Leah and Carlos, go back, watch it.
Power couple.
And yes. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.